Turks, Jake Huger, Anna Kasparian with you guys today. We do have dramatic news, obviously, on the Paris climate deal. They've decided, the Trump administration has decided to go with the withdrawal method. No, not that bad. No, not that good. Oh no, boo.
No,
okay,
Jake, just stop.
Okay, all right, I got you. Look, I normally do a big tease at the beginning of the show, tell you all the fun things that are coming up, or a lot of them. I would just give you a thematic tease today. Lots of stories about religion and my frustration with it.
Are we going to hear about shellfish today?
There's some chance that we will be discussing shrimp and lobsters and the hypocrisy of some of the religious folks in the country. That will be a theme throughout, including on climate change.
Yep.
So, Casper, take it away.
Howdy. All right. So there is a lot of big news today. Let's get right to it. Donald Trump was expected to pull out of the Paris climate deal, and today he did just that. In an announcement, he indicated that the United States would not be taking part in this deal, which 187 other countries have signed on to. And of course, the whole point of the deal was to lower carbon emissions and curb human behavior that contributes to climate change. Now, during his announcement, he gave some interesting reasons as to why the US needs to pull out. Let's take a look.
In order to fulfill my solemn duty to protect America and its citizens, the United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord Thank you. Thank you. But begin negotiations to re-enter either the Paris Accord or in really entirely new transaction.
Okay, so there's so many parts of that disastrous declaration that I enjoyed. First, is Trump ever going to get any chiropractor to help him on his neck? With a constant like this, okay, all right, now on the important stuff. That crowd was so enthusiastic, like, yes, we're gonna destroy the world, it's melting, we're gonna make it hotter, it's so smart.
The second he used the word withdraw, he didn't even finish his sentence, he just said withdraw, and it was like, yes,
withdraw,
destroy the planet,
yes,
yes.
Okay, so, and then it's a classic Trump thing, like, we might re-enter, I'll negotiate a better deal, right? So, in the case of the Paris climate deal, I don't know which way he's gonna go on whether he's going to re-enter after the withdrawal or not. I certainly wouldn't count on it, and so I think you can consider it that it is done deal at this point. But on something like Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is a trade deal that all of his donors actually want, Trump will use that excuse like, oh, I have negotiated a much better deal. Now we will re-enter TPP.
Right.
And screw over all the people who I said made campaign process to. But to be fair to Trump, in this case, he told you that he doesn't believe in climate change. He told you that he thought it was a Chinese hoax. So if you think it's a hoax made up by a foreign government, of course you would withdraw from Paris. You don't even think there is a real problem.
And also, he's been very consistent on any type of environmental policy from the moment he stepped into office. So he wants to do away with national monuments and allow for drilling and mining on that public property. He does not believe in climate change. He has been very open and honest about that. He wants to help increase jobs in coal, even those people who worked in that industry realize that those jobs are gone. I mean, he just has absolutely no concern for the environment whatsoever. And he also talks about how this deal just costs too much money. I really want to toss to the second video because I do have a response to it. So let's take a look.
So we're getting out, but we will start to negotiate and we will see if we can make a deal that's fair. And if we can, that's great. And if we can't, that's fine. This includes ending the implementation of the nationally determined contribution and, very importantly, the Green Climate Fund, which is costing the United States a vast fortune.
You know what also costs the United States a vast fortune? Extreme weather conditions, which destroy properties and tear families apart, kill people. There's also the issue of the inability to grow crops because of extreme weather conditions. I mean, that kind of stuff is pretty costly as well. And also having to find a way to relocate individuals living in the United States who happen to live on the coasts, but their homes are now underwater, which is something that we can expect certainly in the next couple decades. So that's pretty expensive, right? And a lot of lives are gonna be impacted negatively as a result of our inability to participate in this very important pact. The good news is there are some states, including California, that feel like they need to take a more aggressive role in curbing carbon emissions. If the United States isn't gonna do it as a country, there are states that say, hey, you know what? We're gonna take the leadership position and we're gonna do something about it. So that's the little bit of good news in this story. But it's devastating how much this country basks in ignorance.
Yeah, well, certainly that crowd was very much basking in it. They seem super jazzed about the fact that we're going to make climate change worse. Okay, so now let's give you some further context. He says he did it for coal, as Anna pointed out. Gary Cohn, his top economic advisor, used to be president of Goldman Sachs, said recently, I covered on the show yesterday, that the coal jobs that coal as an industry, quote, doesn't make sense anymore. So his top economic advisor says, not really for coal. Coal doesn't make sense. And he says, and nobody's liberal. He's just saying fracking is become so much better in his opinion and cheaper, et cetera, that coal is not economically viable. So when he says he's doing it for coal jobs, it's just not true. And his top economic advisor has either wittingly or unwittingly admitted it in public. Secondly, this is such a disastrous move that even his Secretary of State was opposed to withdrawing from the Paris Accord, and his Secretary of State was the former CEO of ExxonMobil. So, and by the way, even the oil companies, along with a great majority of the corporations, actually came out on this one and were like, I wouldn't withdraw from that agreement. Now, the oil companies probably have got a lot of secret research on climate change. And so as much as they profit, they're probably like, Rex Tillerson has probably seen the research. He's like, don't withdraw, right. That's a bad idea.
Well, another individual in the corporate world spoke out against this immediately, and that was Elon Musk. I want to go to his tweet. He said, America departing presidential councils, climate change is real. Leaving Paris is not good for America or the world.
Yeah, so he's saying he is departing the presidential council. So he was
am departing, okay.
Yeah, he said he was on the presidential council, he'd received some flack for that. And he said, look, I'm working for change on the inside. And then as this decision was coming, he said, I want to be clear, I will leave the presidential council because that means I didn't affect change from the inside. If they withdraw from this, is a disastrous decision. And when in fact we did withdraw, he left the presidential council. So that makes a ton of sense, and I appreciate that he did that. And this also costs us economically. So yesterday we talked about how there's a $6 trillion market for renewable energy, and we fall further and further behind when we're going backwards on energy sources that are going forwards. And a lot of the countries that are our competitors there were overjoyed about that aspect of it. And now China has reached out to Europe and said, hey, since the US has left the building, you guys want to work closer together on some of these initiatives and trade? And Europe has said yes. So already the ramifications have begun. They're not just for our planet, but they're also for American economic interests, and they're not positive. The exact opposite of what Trump just said. I'm doing it so that America's economy could be better. No, there's an excellent chance it'll be far, far worse off. And one more thing, when he talks about, we're paying too much in this deal, that's the standard line he uses in every deal, right? But we're 5% of the world's population, and we're 15% of the world's carbon emissions. So we're 3 times as much as our population. So yeah, we put out a disproportionate amount of carbon and emissions overall. So we of course should pay according to that. But Trump not being good at math or any other thing, looks at it and goes, why are we paying more? Why, we're America. We should just get to do whatever the hell we want and never pay the bill. And which is not surprising if you remember that Donald Trump is famous for not paying the bill. He had 6 different bankruptcies where he told his creditors to go take a long walk off a short dock. He's like, no, I'm a deadbeat. I never pay my bills. That's why he had to do a lot of deals with the Russians and for his golf courses, as his sons admit, and for some of his properties.
Yeah. Look, the US is no longer a leader globally, and that's a really scary position to be in because we're making enemies out of longtime allies, Germany being one of them. Germany stating that they can no longer rely on the United States. And why? For what? Like why? Why is he going out of his way to completely destroy, important ally relationships that we have abroad? He doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. And this is a disastrous decision. It will have huge ramifications, not only for the economy, but also, obviously for our environment. And I just feel like it's a very embarrassing time to be an American. It is.
And during the general election campaign, when it was Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, we had a lot of discussions on the show, and I remember the 2 guys that emphasized this the most were John Iadarola and Wes Clark, and they were both said, look, on this alone, we cannot let Trump win, because can the earth even recover from 4 more years of going in the wrong direction? And as we speak, the Arctic ice is falling into the oceans, and methane is going to be released from that, which is even more dangerous than carbon. So Trump has literally set the world back. And this is what we were warning you about, and then this is what has happened. So we have hit the proverbial iceberg as it's falling into the ocean.
Yep. Well, there's other climate related news, so let's get to that. A Republican lawmaker in Michigan by the name of Representative Tim Walberg was recently talking to his constituents about the issue of climate change. Now, interestingly enough, even though he is a right-leaning politician, he does believe that climate change exists. However, he does want to let everyone know that if we start really feeling the consequences of climate change, there's one individual or one power that has everything under control. Take a look.
I believe there's climate change. I believe there's been climate change since the beginning of time.
Okay, so we're off to a good start.
Great,
we're off to a really good start.
That's a Republican agreeing to reality. Wonderful.
Right, but then he continues.
Do I think that man has some impact? Yeah, of course. Can man change the entire universe? No. Why do I believe that? Well, as a Christian, I believe that there is a creator and God who's much bigger than us. And I'm confident that if there's a real problem, he can take care of it.
I'm amused by how much God must have hated the dinosaurs. I wonder what kind of sin that they created. Because the dinosaurs, their last words are, God, why have you forsaken us? Look at the damn meteor.
Yeah.
Okay, look.
Maybe they were having too much Tyrannosaurus sex.
Oh, Singer, I hadn't heard that before. Anyways, all right, so guys, I mean, look, what are you gonna do in a world run by lunatics? And so sorry, I know religious people get super upset at me, but you believe in fairy tales, and your fairy tales, when it just gets you through the night, bless your heart, I got no problems with it, and I think faith is different than religion, okay? And so you don't have faith, God bless. Ironic, but true, right? But if you say, no, I believe in religion, these things written by rabbis 2,500 years ago, when they had no science at all, they barely knew that 2 + 2 = 4. And they're like, I don't know, I think there's holes in the sky, and I think Yahweh wants us to do X, Y, or Z. And now later, when we're setting policy that actually affects the world, and climate change leads to severe storms throughout the world, let alone the droughts, the famines, and all the things that are coming and have already begun to arrive, and that affects and unfortunately ultimately kills millions of people. Now you're telling me, no, it's okay, my imaginary friend in the sky is gonna fix it?
But this is not a rare talking point among some of the more fundamentalist religious people in the country, right? Now, I don't know, and I don't think he's fundamentalist, but what this reminds me of is when some families will have an individual in their family who gets extremely sick and needs medical attention. And they're like, no, we don't need to go to doctors because God's gonna take care of it. And so if their kid, gets cancer or something like that, they decide, no cancer treatments, no nothing, no seeing a doctor. If it's God's will for my child to die, then it's God's will. And that kind of thinking is so incredibly dangerous. No, God is not gonna come in and save the planet. If you're a religious person, you have faith, awesome, right? I have nothing against that. But at the same time, you can't allow that type of thinking to either dictate or sway public policy. Policy related to climate change is incredibly important. That's what's gonna save this planet. That's what's gonna save people's lives from extreme weather conditions.
Okay, so let me tackle this from a different direction if you're religious. So there's an old story about there's a priest on a sinking ship, and they say, Father, get on the life preserver. We've got enough space. He says, that's okay. God's gonna come and save me. And then the ship continues to sink. He's the only one left on it. And a giant ship's come by and goes, oh my God, you're sinking in here. Come aboard our ship. And the father says, no, God is gonna save me. I don't need your ship. Thank you though. And then he's almost done. He's all the way up to here. And a helicopter comes by and they say, okay, we're gonna save you, Father. And the priest says, no, it's okay. God is gonna save me. And the helicopter leaves, and as he's about to die and he's drowning, he says, God, why have you forsaken me? And God says, dude, I sent you 3 different ways to save your life. I sent you a boat, a ship, and a helicopter. Why didn't you get on, right? So my point there is, yeah, my child is sick, but God will take care of it. Yeah, God will take care of it if you're a believer. Through science and doctors and medicine. He gave you medicine and science and doctors, use it, right? And in this case of climate change, yeah, how's God gonna save it? First of all, he gave us a mind, we might wanna use it. He gave us scientists, and 97% of them agree that it's happening, and we better fix it right now, otherwise all those consequences that I talked about will actually happen, okay? The droughts, the storms, etc., and all the deaths will happen. Our military says it's gonna happen. Even the corporations say it's gonna happen. Everyone says it's gonna happen. How many times did God have to send you something for you to do something about it instead of sitting around like a jackass going, oh, I don't know, I guess God will fix it with magic. So if he hadn't fixed it with magic yet, I guess it's all right. So we cannot afford this level of stupidity. And so again, sorry if you're in the camp that doesn't believe in science and that believes in voodoo, but that is the stupid position. And Tim Walberg is squarely in that camp.
I feel like you're being a little unfair to him, right? I think that, look, the statement about how Jesus is gonna take the wheel and everything's gonna be okay, I mean, it makes people like us roll our eyes, right? But it's also the type of statement that plays well with his constituents. I give him credit for acknowledging climate change and also acknowledging the fact that it is caused by humans, because you don't hear that from the right. You don't hear that from Republican representatives, especially members of Congress. And so I give him credit. I think that his heart is in the right place. I think that he is religious, and religion teaches you to have faith that everything's gonna be okay and God's gonna look out for you. Now, I get it.
You're gonna make me go harder.
No, don't go harder on him.
I
think it's important. I think it's important in cases where someone seems reasonable but might not agree with us completely, to have these conversations, to have dialogue, and not immediately cast them off as lunatics that are,
No, look, okay, let's roll back lunatic for a second, but so my number 1 problem with religion is that it is not true. So I love you if you think it is, and you got faith, and and could there be a connection between all of us? I think that's possible. If anything, I might be a transcendentalist, right? It's a very American religion, if you will, or faith. But did God communicate to Mary and said, hey, I'm gonna impregnate you and you da-da-da? No, Moses didn't even exist. There's no archaeological record of him in Egypt at all. Did he split the Red Sea? It's not true. It's not true. Did Muhammad move a mountain? Did he talk to God on top of a mountain? No, it is not true. So if you keep believing in fairy tales, but then you make world-changing decisions that endanger the rest of our lives, then I'm sorry, I gotta be a little offensive to you and point out that you believe in goddamn fairy tales. Okay. So, no, and second of all, Tim Wahlberg is not a genuine actor and he doesn't actually mean any of that stuff. Why does Tim Wahlberg have that position? Does it have to do with religion or does it have to do with facts or science? No, it has to do with his donors. So there's still enough donors out there who say, no, I am profiting, me, I don't care about the rest of the world. If your kids die and maybe even mine, what do I care? I'm so goddamn greedy, I'm going to purchase Tim Wahlberg. And hey, Wahlberg, do as I goddamn tell you. Make up some lie about how you're religious or something, but you will vote against doing anything about climate change because that's what you're paid to do. Now go out there, water boy, and do your job. And that's what Wahlberg's doing.
Do you know that for a fact? I mean, I didn't look into his campaign donors, but maybe you have information that I don't know.
The entire Republican Party is funded by the same oil companies who today are panicking a little bit and going, oh, I don't know, we want to pull out of that. But the fossil fuel industry, and that is why they have the propaganda they do. By the way, their think tanks are also funded by the same exact companies whose job it is to trick you, just like the tobacco companies. Just create doubt, create doubt. Does it cause cancer? Some say that they do, some say that it doesn't. I can't tell. Let's let Jesus sort it out after you die from smoking, right? And after the planet dies from climate change, we'll let Jesus sort it out, okay? Now, Republican Party, en masse, go, I am paying you to be stupid. And by the way, and this is important, and Anna, you make a good point. It's not just that Tim Wahlberg guys like him go, hey man, I just want a Bentley. I'll do whatever you want. I just want power. Okay, I believe climate change is totally real and the planet is melting. I don't care. Just give me the money. It's somewhere like that, but not all of them. I would guess that most of them are. It's a country of 330 million people. You want to find a stupid guy who will do your bidding? You go, hey, dumbass, do you believe in climate change? I don't know, I guess not. I guess the Lord Jesus is going to save us or Muhammad or somebody, right? And they go, oh, okay, you're the idiot I need. Hey, useful moron, come here, come here. Here's a check, you run for Congress, now you're my boy. You understand that, Tim? And Tim goes, oh yeah, I understand that. And that's how it works.
All right, we got to take a break, but when we come back, some of the ethics rule exemptions that the Trump administration is utilizing for members of its administration. It's amazing. You don't want to miss that story. Come right back. I'll tell you all about the swamp.
right, back on the Young Turks. If we get to the last story of today's show, we will actually give some Republicans credit. Actually, a lot of credit. So hold on for that. Your mama writes in, re-entering after withdrawal is generally dangerous and counterproductive. Okay, nice job. Better joke than mine. Alex writes in, we shouldn't forget that Paris Climate Agreement was the absolute bare minimum. That's exactly right. That was what we can get everybody to agree to. It was not something that was earth-shattering or really radical. It was just as little as we could do. And now we're not even gonna do that. Joy says Trump is eliminating or retracting deals because he wasn't responsible for them in the first place. He has to get credit or they go. And if you remember, I told you a story about a friend of mine who worked out a deal of his in one of his 6 bankruptcies. And they had actually structured a deal that would be better for Trump, but since it wasn't his idea, he rejected it.
He's such a child. It's amazing.
He
is amazing.
Unbelievable. Anyway, Stephen McCallum says, nowhere in the Bible does it discuss climate change. These frauds will use any excuse to protect their money flow. So, Stephen, apparently you agree with me on what might be the cause of the Republican congressman's opinion there in Michigan. And Jan says, I think the worst thing about religion is that it gives you an easy excuse to avoid personal responsibility. Jan, again, super right, because I remember Michelle Bachmann, when she explained why she turned to the Lord Jesus Christ, it's because she said, I was so tired of making decisions. It's really, really interesting. You should go back and Google it and either watch our video on it or read the story. And she said, so once I turned my life over to Jesus, it was great. It was in his hands and I didn't have to make any more decisions. Now that's of course not true. You're still making the decisions. You just give yourself an excuse. Oh no, Jesus wanted it done that way.
I mean, when you frame it that way, it sounds pretty good.
It does, right?
Like I'm so tired of making decisions, gotta keep it 100. Like super tired of making decisions.
Yeah, and you'll still make them, but you'll feel great because you'll think that Jesus made them.
Right,
and
exactly.
So you don't have any personal responsibility.
I don't know, you're kind of making a good case for becoming religious.
That's right. So Jesus, we're right back in your camp now. All right, what's next?
All right. Donald Trump claimed that he was going to drain the swamp. He was going to do away with the cozy relationship between politicians and lobbyists. However, his so-called pledge to do so is something that he completely reneged on. In fact, he has exempted senior staff members from his so-called ethics rules. Now, the ethics rules, again, have to do with people working as lobbyists and then working for the government or anything where there could be a potential conflict of interest. Keep in mind that he is one gigantic example of a conflict of interest within our government. So it's no surprise that he would exempt senior staff members. Now, Trump's ethics pledge is aimed at cutting down on conflicts of interest, banning ex-lobbyists for 2 years from working on matters they dealt with for paying clients. But the list of people that he exempts includes ex-lobbyists who joined the administration to work on policy areas they had covered for their K Street clients. 2 comprehensive waivers give whole swaths of White House employees a waiver from this ethics pledge. So let me give you some of the more interesting examples. So Steve Bannon, President Trump's chief strategist, is the former head of conservative news outlet Breitbart. The waiver from the ethics rules would allow him to contact his former outlet. And also news broke today that there's actually a papers trail showing that Steve Bannon has still been working with Breitbart very closely even after the election.
Can I say it now?
Go ahead.
Of course he has. He's leaked every story to Breitbart. It's the most obvious thing in the whole wide world. So they're giving him a waiver now, but he'd been doing it with or without the waiver anyway. Look, if that was the extent of it, I actually wouldn't have a problem with it. Steve Bannon, I don't care if he talks to Breitbart, he's gonna leak to them anyway.
Right.
I don't think that's a huge ethical issue. And another one is Reince Priebus. He used to, of course, run the RNC. And now as the White House chief of staff, he often has to talk to the RNC. No problem with that either. So some of this is fine. Others, not so much.
So let me give you an example of a situation that is not okay. And I think this is especially timely considering the fact that Donald Trump has pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord. So energy lobbyist Michael Catanzaro is now working as Trump's top energy advisor.
See, that's one of my favorite ones. Because sometimes they'll make the excuse of like, no, but what he did as a lobbyist is not really relevant to his job. But he was an energy lobbyist and he's a top energy advisor to the president.
I'm sure he played no role and is never in Trump's ear about, climate change related policy or energy related policy whatsoever. Now, there was some excuse or reasoning or an attempt at reasoning in regard to this energy lobbyist. Here's what the White House had to say. It is important that you participate in covered matters, and disqualification from such matters would limit the ability of the White House office to effectively carry out its duties. This is based on his waiver, right? Which allows him to help shape policy on Clean Air Act issues and renewable fuel standard and the Clean Power Plan. Okay, so essentially, we need his expertise as an energy lobbyist to make decisions on these policies. Like, they're just straight out admitting, yeah, we're letting this guy sway our decision making.
Yeah, and so understand, of course, what it means to be a lobbyist. So he used to represent the industries in energy, and they would lobby the government all the time to go in a certain direction. So against doing anything about climate change, because they didn't want their fossil fuel industry reined in or regulated at all. They just wanted to be able to make profits and socialize the costs and put it all on us. We want to keep privatize the profits, and the carbon cost of our fossil fuels, we want you to pay it. I don't want to pay it, I want you to pay it. So that he was paid to put that position forward. Now he's at the White House. Now they're like, great, we don't even have to, we're inside the building, right?
There's more, that's just the beginning. Shahira Knight, who previously worked as a lobbyist for Fidelity, obtained a waiver to work as Trump's chief advisor on tax and retirement policies.
Which is exactly what Fidelity works on. But I bet she's totally neutral, and all the money that they were paid earlier as lobbyists has not affected them at all. And now they're just looking out for the American people.
I just want everyone to wake up, okay? I want everyone to realize, especially rural white Americans who thought that he was out there for your best interests. He doesn't care about you, okay? He doesn't care about what your concerns are. He's not gonna bring back your jobs. He hasn't done anything for you so far. The only thing he's done is propose healthcare legislation that would destroy you, okay? He does not care about you. He cares about these corporate interests. He cares about this insanely corrupt political system, which he has benefited from and exploited himself. He's not looking out for you. He has deep disdain and always has had deep disdain for those living in poverty. He's been open and honest about that from the very beginning, okay? And just because he did these campaign rallies where he's showboating and pretending like he's this great guy, you guys fell for it, you fell for it. This is not me trying to belittle you or talk down to you. This is me begging you to please understand that he doesn't care about you whatsoever. I remember, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, John Idarola and I covered a story where Donald Trump said golf should be reserved for the wealthy, right? He thinks that it is a wealthy person's sport, and those who aren't of a certain socioeconomic status should not have access to golf, right? That is elitist, okay? People trying to let you know what's going on with policy and how certain politicians aren't looking out for your best interests is not elitist. It's elitist to say that golf should be reserved for the wealthy. It's elitist to have constant meetings at your insanely luxurious resort in Florida. That's elitist.
So I covered a story during the campaign where they explained that his friends and allies explained that he respects people who have more money than him. But if you have less money than him, he doesn't respect you because he thinks you're a loser. So you think he's looking out for you? No, he views you as a loser. So he told you he was going to drain the swamp, and he thought, well, these losers will believe it. I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and they'll still support me. I'll tell them I'm going to drain the swamp, and then I'll fill my White House full of lobbyists who will rob everybody blind, and they'll still believe me. I'm going to give you two last examples. Andrew Olmham is a former financial service lobbyist for Venable, who's now able to work directly on economic policies as the #2 on the White House National Economic Council.
And I'm sure they're gonna look out for the best interests of rural white Americans.
Yeah.
That's genuinely what they wanna do.
So the global financial elite, he put it in his ads. He told you he was gonna look out for you and to make sure that he kept those guys in check. Instead, he's like, come on in, man. The great American robbery has begun. He's got 5 Goldman Sachs guys in his cabinet and among his top advisors. And here are 2 financial lobbyists that we just told you about in this. He pretended that he was gonna make them, that he was gonna have ethics rules that wouldn't allow them in the White House. Now he just gave them dozens of waivers so that they could all come in. And the last one is Kellyanne Conway. So she was a GOP pollster, worked with a lot of other groups, and she technically could not talk to them because of Donald Trump's ethics rules, right? And so now she can. Well, okay, you say she represented the National Rifle Association. I think the White House should probably talk to the NRA. Now, it could be someone else, but I don't care if it's Kellyanne Conway. Other groups that she worked for include Citizens United, that is an actual group. That's the one that the Supreme Court case was about. And the Koch-backed group, Freedom Partners. So the guys who give tremendous donations to the Republican Party overall, now they could whisper in Kellyanne Conway's ear and say, this is what we, the billionaires, are interested in. So go ahead, carry our water.
All right, moving on to some other news. Jordan Sheridan has been investigating the situation in Flint, Michigan, and he has uncovered a pretty incredible story involving some misuse of campaign funds done by the Genesee County prosecutor David Layton. Now, David Layton is the prosecutor who is supposed to represent the people and look into the Flint water crisis and figure out who is guilty of wrongdoing and what type of consequences should be doled out as a result. Now, if you look at some of the behavior of David Layton, you find some interesting misuse of campaign funds and also a lot of weird inconsistencies in what he files for reimbursements and what actually happens behind the scenes. So keep in mind that he takes trips that he claims are business related, and then he pays himself back by expensing any type of cost that he incurred as a result of these trips, right? So a few examples would be $1,500 that he spent in Chicago, Illinois, $3,000 he spent in Washington, D.C., $6,000 in Tucson, Arizona, $5,000 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and $4,500 in Boston, Massachusetts. Now, when he filed expense reports, he indicated that those funds were necessary because he was attending National District Attorneys Association meetings. Well, Jordan actually reached out to the NDAA to figure out whether or not those meetings actually took place during the time that Layton said that he went there. And it turns out that in 3 out of 5 cases, there was never a meeting by the NDAA. So what was he spending the money on? Why was he going on those trips?
So those are very fair questions, and we should look into. We have looked into it, and other press should look into it to get those answers. Because look, I think Jordan did a great job here because he did something that a lot of folks wouldn't have done. The guy says, "Look, I'm not spending taxpayer money. I'm spending campaign funds, and I'm going to these official trips. It's okay." That seems legit, right? But he bothered to check. Wait, were there NDAA events there? And even the NDAA says, no, to our knowledge, there was no way. Executive Director Kate Chopard said, several of the dates you list are not NDAA meeting dates or places, so I don't know what those might be. So one thing they might be is you take a vacation and then you don't want to pay for it. You want your campaign contributors to pay for it, and then you say there's an NDAA meeting. By the way, in some of those trips, Jordan also found out that he bought himself a cellular phone or an iPad, and an iPad in one case, and a laptop purchase in the other. Now, it could be that he bought it for his campaign, and he just happened to be in Fort Lauderdale, and he decided, boy, my campaign needs a laptop, okay? And it's entirely possible. That's why we have asked him over and over again, hey, clear this up, because misusing campaign funds is a legal problem, and it is also a problem with the IRS.
Yes.
So those are significant issues. If someone was asking me about that, I would want to clarify it if I was the local prosecutor.
Yes.
The fact that he has not clarified it is troubling.
It is troubling. Now, if you think that sounds suspicious and that sounds bad, keep in mind that this is an iceberg and that's just the tip, okay? There's a lot worse going on behind the scenes, and it's concerning considering the fact that this is the guy who's supposed to be investigating Flint and the water crisis there. keep in mind that the situation with the drinking water hasn't improved much. And so Jordan continued investigating, and he found out that the Board of Commissioners voted to give Leighton a $45,000 raise as part of his promotion to corporation counsel. Now, corporation counsel is supposed to be completely separate from county prosecutor. If those two roles are joined, there is a conflict of interest issue there, right? Now, Jordan explains this really well in the next video. Take a quick look. We'll come back and give you more details.
2 years ago, 2015, the Board of Commissioners of Genesee County, that is 9 individuals, that's the Board of Commissioners, gave David Leighton, the county prosecutor, a $45,000 raise to become the corporation counsel. So essentially, who John Gleason, the county clerk, has to bring campaign finance issues to is the corporation counsel, who in this place is David Leighton. So what happens when David Leighton's friends, other public officials, if there is concerns about their campaign finance reports? He has no choice but to bring it to David Leighton, who is he going to prosecute his friends or people he fundraises with or people who have donated to him? Even bigger than that, what happens when there's concerns or questions raised about David Leighton's campaign finance? Who are you to bring that to? Well, in Genesee County right now, the county clerk, John Gleason, has to bring those concerns about David Leighton's campaign finance reports and irregularities to, say it with me, David Leighton.
Disaster. So it's extremely corrupt. And of course, David Leighton isn't gonna punish himself for the misuse of campaign funds, right? And so if this type of corrupt behavior is taking place among local government officials, how can we expect them to actually represent the people of Flint, Michigan and their best interests?
So let me be a little bit clearer about it too. So you could have a conflict of interest without corruption. It is possible, but you shouldn't, because if there is corruption, it'll be incredibly hard to unearth if you ask the guy who's supposed to unearth it to unearth his own corruption. Most time they don't. So George's not the first to look into this. Genesee County Clerk John Gleason actually filed a lawsuit against Genesee County because he saw these irregularities with Leighton's campaign records that were in the past, so right. Different things.
The first time he attempted to do an audit of Leighton's expense reports was back in 2013. And apparently that whole negotiation kind of fell through, and then it came back up again in 2015. And then all of a sudden in 2016, Leighton is named the corporation counsel, and as a result, he doesn't have to follow through with any type of audit.
So when he didn't, then Gleason, whose job is to check all this, refiled the lawsuits, and he said the fact that he's also the corporation counsel has decided not to follow through on this audit. He said is, quote, wholly unethical. So this is now us following up and finding out where the money was spent on the campaign finance, and there are not good answers on where it was spent. We know where it went. We don't have good but it doesn't match up with what Leighton has said publicly. So again, we asked Leighton to comment on it because maybe he can clarify all this, but so far hasn't yet. Now, one more last thing about this in regards to Flint, because look, one of the reasons we care and you guys care is because there's the lead in the water in Flint. So many people got sick and they still can't drink the tap water. And Leighton decided not to pursue any charges against anyone in relationship to that case, which is interesting because it turns out that he was the prosecutor who had to approve all the contracts for switching over to the KWA. That's the water authority they switched over to. Now, if you approved switching over to that authority, would you prosecute anyone else for switching over to that water authority? Well, fairly unlikely. And it's not like, well, nobody could pursue charges. In reality, Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette has brought charges against 13 individuals. So you can actually bring charges in this case, but Leighton has chosen not to, because not only is he the one that authorized it, but he is such good friends with Jeff Wright, who is both the Genesee County Drain Commissioner and the CEO of KWA, who they switched to, right? Another giant conflict of interest. Leighton says he's such a good friend of mine that I'm recusing myself in some of these cases. So did he investigate Wright and the switchover? Hadn't happened yet, right? So if you live in Flint, you live in Genesee County, you might want to look into this, because if you're looking to your leaders to do investigations on this, hasn't happened yet, and there might be a good reason why it hasn't.
Right. Well, if you want more on this story, definitely check out TYT Politics, youtube.com/TYT Politics, where this investigative story and other investigative stories live and exist because of you guys. You guys funded this team, so thank you. All right, we should take a break. When we come back, some Trump supporters now kind of turning on him a little bit because of the way that they've been treated. They claim they've been used and exploited. How? I'll tell you why when you come back.
Of course they have.
Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
I just remember thinking, what is this guy's name?
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
And fill-in hosts beat CNN and headline news combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut-up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, "You won't believe the meeting that I just had."
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? He said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
This is the Gaslamp Killer. Piece to Absent presents 2016 shit.
I like drums. I like big drums. Heavy, funky, deep drums. I'm not classically trained. I just started out as a record collector. I have synthesizers. I have all these modular synths and fun DJ tools that I use to make psychedelic sounds. It's not just the music. People want to leave their bodies in order to connect with the spirit world. And when you're making music, it's a similar kind of thing. You want to escape your day-to-day to leaving this shit behind and finding more of a deeper place to create from. That is the essence of Gaslamp Killer music.
back on the Young Turks.
Can I just say that
Go.
my hair is on fire today?
Okay.
It is. Like, I don't know how or why this happened, but I'm feeling it and I love it.
It does make a dragon want to retire, man.
Okay. I don't know what that is, but sure.
Uptown funk you up. Please, guys, please look into it, okay? Call the police, call the firemen. Okay, anyway. Yes, fire, yes.
Thank you. I like validation too.
Yes, agreed. So members, hear our post game from yesterday to understand what we're talking about in validation. Okay, anyways, no, that was in TYT Classics.
TYT Classics, you gotta be a member, we have fun.
We had a fun old school last night. Tonight, by the way, an all-star aggressive progressives. Not only Jimmy and Steve, whatevs, but James Cromwell, the actor. I interviewed him recently, and he's like, where do I sign up to be an aggressive progressive?
Wow.
I was like, this is where you sign up. And Crystal Ball, former MSNBC anchor.
I remember Crystal Ball.
And legendary investigative reporter Jordan Cheriton. All-star cast tonight on Aggressive Progressives. TYTnetwork.com/join to get that. And by the way, the first segment is live to everybody. So check it out at 9 o'clock Eastern right here at TYTnetwork.com/live. All right, couple of quick tweets for you guys. Annie O'Neill says he did drain the swamp, but then built a golf course for all the swamp people. Gillian Babb says, no, you didn't get it. He didn't mean he wanted to keep them in check. He meant he wants to give them a check.
Yeah.
That's funny. And then finally, I Am Sock says, where do I sign up to be a corrupt politician? Is there a training program or something? You know what? All you gotta do is raise your hand, like Gorsuch, our newest Supreme Court justice. So why is he on the Supreme Court? Did somebody come and give him the secret memo and it was a conspiracy? No. He just knew, because he's a smart guy, that if he writes the most draconian decisions in favor of corporations, that he's the one that'll get selected. So he's the one that ruled, was the only judge to rule out of the 9 judges that saw it in all the different levels, that a man should freeze to death if a corporation tells him to. And so the rest of us look at that in horror, and he looked at it as his ticket to the Supreme Court, and guess what? It worked. And that's how the invisible hand of the establishment finds the people who are useful to power. Okay.
It's devastating. Okay, should we do more stories?
Go, for God's sake.
All right. During the campaign, a nonprofit that was featured rather prominently during Donald Trump's rallies and especially during the Republican National Convention was a Houston-based nonprofit known as the Remembrance Project. The Remembrance Project essentially wanted to do some work raising awareness about individuals who were victimized as a result of undocumented immigrants in the country. So families who had lost a child as a result of an undocumented immigrant, drinking and driving, stuff like that. And so interestingly enough, the families that were prominently featured during Trump's campaign are now pushing back against the Remembrance Project, claiming that they were, quote, used, abused, and exploited by the nonprofit and to a lesser extent, Donald Trump. So more than a dozen families involved in the Houston-based Remembrance Project, including 2 who spoke at the Republican National Convention and several more who spoke at Trump's rallies, were featured in his campaign ads, have parted ways with the organization. The charity has done nothing to help them financially, despite suggesting that the money it raised, including $52,000 or more raised with Trump's help, would be used to assist family members. Now, they've raised way more than $52,000. There was one event where they had Donald Trump speak, and people spent a lot of money per plate just to attend that. And that was where they raised $52,000, and then there were other organizations that donated money to them, including US Inc. They donated $57,500. So anyway, they're raising all this money. They're a nonprofit that is not supposed to be involved in politics, but they were very much involved in politics. And these families who were paraded around during the rallies and during the campaign received absolutely no help. And so now they're upset. One person says, this is Barbara Sparks, "We were used, abused, and exploited. And what's worse is that my son was used, abused, and exploited and is still being used, abused, and exploited." So her son's story is still being utilized by this nonprofit, and she and other families are thinking about suing just to get it to stop. Also, the Remembrance Project president says, no, this is not the president. Sorry, this is a wrong citation. But another individual says, "I sort of felt like we were just a dog and pony show on stage for all these people in the audience who were donors and who weren't victims." So Angie Morfin Vargas, she's a Remembrance Project participant. And so she was upset with the way that she and her family were treated as a result of all this.
Okay, so this story's a little nuanced. I think Donald Trump used all these groups, of course, for political reasons, but to be fair, politicians, that's what they do. They use groups for political reasons that they agree with. So they wanted to showcase people who had been hurt by undocumented immigrants so that they could use that as a way to stop immigration and target undocumented immigrants. So, but to be fair, Donald Trump can't control what the organizers of this group does. So he could maybe hold them more accountable. I don't know to what degree he knows about the latest details in this case. And before you get too weepy-eyed for the Brenda Sparks and the others who are saying that they were exploited, first of all, let's be clear. I mean, their son died, so on that, of course, we support them emotionally and we feel terrible for their loss. But in terms of policy, they're actually pissed at Trump for not being draconian enough.
Right, they want Donald Trump to go after people who are labeled as dreamers in the country, people who were brought into the United States as children and still have undocumented status. They want Donald Trump to deport those people as soon as possible, and they're upset that he seems to have reversed his position on that incident or that situation.
So I think the interesting part of this story is twofold. One is that a lot of these right-wing groups pop up. The woman who runs this is Maria Espinoza, and she ran another group about some healthcare issue, and that
spina bifida.
Yeah, that didn't work. So they're like, let's just leave that aside. Then they go to this. I don't know why they cared about the two very disparate issues. They could though. People have different interests. And then all of a sudden, she started getting paid by a lot of the right-wing groups because they're like, this is useful. Okay, the spina bifida thing we don't care about, but this is useful. Okay, so they start giving them checks, and they're like, good. And she starts to get a little bit more famous. Then she decides she's going to run for Congress in 2018. And I don't know, and there may be that it'll get sorted out in court or something. Did she really promise to give these families money and stiff them? If she did, that she would be the 100th right-wing group in a row to do that. Not every right-wing group does that, but a lot do, like the Sarah Palin trick. Oh, give me money and I will give it to Republican candidates. And then she gives I think around 3% of the money to Republican candidates and then spends a lot more money on buying her own books with the money that you donated to her political cause.
It seems like a very fun Republican hobby where you run a so-called charity or a fundraiser and claim you're gonna give money to certain groups of people and then you end up not giving that money to certain groups of people. I mean, Donald Trump did that with claiming that he was raising money for members of the military, and he did the exact opposite. I still don't know whether or not he gave any of that money to members of the military. But in this case, with the co-founder of the Remembrance Project, Maria Espinoza, she claims, I never promised anyone money. We just wanted to be there for emotional support. Okay, well then why are you having these gigantic fundraisers? What are the fundraisers for, right? And also,
you are, good idea.
Yeah, you're a non-profit organization that is supposed to abide by certain laws, right? You are supposed to be in trouble with the IRS if you are non-profit and involved in the political world, right? And she's very much involved in the political world. They went to, campaign rallies with Trump. They had members of their organization speak at these rallies. They had family members speak at these rallies. And so this is very much a political group. There's no question about it. So why do they have a nonprofit status? It's ridiculous.
So our campaign laws are basically considered a joke at this point. So Karl Rove used the same laws. Karl Rove's doing something non-political? Is that what's happening? He's not doing it for cancer research. No, everything he does is for the political campaigns that he works on, but he will set up 501c4s, okay, that's fine, then 501c4s, and or C3s, that's a lot of numbers. And they'll just say, oh, it's a charity. Our charity is Republican politicians, right? And nobody's minding the house. They, on purpose, split the vote so that there's no enforcement. It's split between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans refuse to ever investigate abuse of other Republicans and other right-wingers. And the establishment Democrats won't investigate the establishment Democratic candidates. So lo and behold, all the politicians get away with it. If you're a real progressive though, and you even put a comma in the wrong place, they will both agree to come on down on you like a ton of bricks. So understand who has to abide by the law and who doesn't.
Right, and I wanna leave this story with a quote from a Texas Republican activist, because I think it's telling in terms of how this organization raises money and how misleading they seem to be. Let's go to graphic 19. Texas Republican activist Kathleen Lieberman, who attended the luncheon with 10 associates who paid $125 each for tickets, said, quote, "We believe that the money after the dinner was going to help the families, and I was very disappointed to find out that it didn't." Well, so were the families.
Look, donate to right-wing causes at your peril.
Yeah.
So just duly warned. Hey, as a progressive, I should want you to waste your money. I should want you to give it to con artists who are going to laugh at you behind your back. And I'm not saying Maria Espinosa is, they've got a dispute as to which way, what she promised and what she didn't promise. But look, if you're a party built on no empathy, and then you give money to someone and then they take it from you and they have no empathy towards you, you shouldn't be that surprised.
Yeah. All right, I know we're running out of time for the first hour, but I wanna get to the Russia story a little bit because there are some important updates that I think you guys should know about. All right. The investigation involving Trump's campaign and possible obstruction of justice or collusion with Russia is now focusing on Jeff Sessions and meetings that he did not disclose with Russian officials. Now, apparently during his confirmation hearing on January 10th, Sessions testified that he did not have any communications with the Russians during the campaign. In fact, we have that video for you right now. Here is Al Franken asking Jeff Sessions specifically about whether or not he had any contact or communication with Russians. Take a look.
And if there is any evidence that anyone affiliated with the Trump campaign communicated with the Russian government in the course of this campaign, what will you do?
Senator Franken, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians, and I'm unable to comment on it.
Okay, well, that's a little problematic because reports emerged in March that he did have 2 meetings with Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, during the campaign, one at the Republican National Convention in July and one in his office, his Senate office, in September. Well, now there are reports emerging indicating that he had an intimate meeting with Kislyak on a different date. So investigators are focusing on whether a meeting took place April 27th, 2016 at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C., where then candidate Donald Trump was delivering his first major foreign policy address. Prior to the speech, then Senator Sessions and Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak attended a small VIP reception with organizers, diplomats, and others. Now, that is all we know at the moment in regard to that event, right? They attended together. We don't know what type of communication they had during that meeting. We don't know if there was anything shady happening during that meeting, but it's important to keep in mind that Sessions is now, I guess, a larger part of this investigation than previously thought. Also keep in mind that it seems as though the White House is taking extra measures to protect itself, and everything they do makes them look even more guilty. For instance, Sean Spicer claims that he is no longer answering any questions involving Russia. Take a look, video 7.
CNN is reporting that James Comey will testify that the president pressured him to drop the Michael Flynn investigation. Did the president engage in obstruction of justice in repeated meetings with James Comey?
Our job, we are focused on the president's agenda, and all going forward, all questions on these matters will be referred to outside counsel Mark Kasowitz.
So the outside counsel part of that statement is very important, because not only will there be private counsel, there's also White House counsel, and they're likely to butt heads. And I'll get into the details of that in just a second, but I know Cenk wants to jump in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so on Sessions, I knew that he had more meetings with the Russians as soon as they asked him on March 2nd, after he admitted to the 2 meetings. He said, when they asked him, "Did you have any more?" He said, "I don't believe so. You know, we meet a lot of people. I don't believe so." I was like, yeah, okay, he had more meetings with the Russians. It's just a matter of time before we find out, and it looks like now we found out. Whether they were intimate at the Mayflower Hotel is a different question. I suspect that we'll find out more about that. And the reason that Sessions is the Attorney General now might have a lot to do with those exact meetings. So there was a lot of show about who Donald Trump might pick for all these different positions. Well, now, is it going to be Mitt Romney or Rudy Giuliani for Secretary of State, Attorney General, et cetera? And then look at the people that he wound up picking. Sessions is the guy who is the top law enforcement officer, as the Attorney General, who had apparently now many meetings with the Russians that he lied about on the record. That's what they impeached Bill Clinton for. So Republicans who were outraged at Bill Clinton, how dare you lie on the record well, that Sessions has now admitted that he lied about that, right? So no repercussions at all, and he's our top law enforcement officer. Anyway, Trump puts the guy who met with the Russians but was trying to hide it as the Attorney General. He puts Wilbur Ross as Commerce Secretary. What's Wilbur Ross? He ran the Bank of Cyprus, believed to be the epicenter for Russian money laundering. What a wild coincidence. Wait, we're not done with the coincidences. Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, has no experience in diplomacy at all. He was the CEO of ExxonMobil, who had a $500 billion deal with the Russians that were blocked by the sanctions put into place by Obama. So now, by the way, Trump just has begun to reverse some of the actions that Obama took against the Russians. And they had 2 houses filled with spies, and Obama kicked them out. Now, Trump is reopening those houses. So Russian spies, you're welcome back into the country. So all of these incredible coincidences, I wonder what's happening. And if you're wondering why they met with the Russian ambassador on that day, so telling as to what happened the day before and the speech after. Day before, Donald Trump won 5 northeastern states, becoming the front runner to win the Republican primary. So all of a sudden the Russians are like, oh wait, we were just messing around, this guy's actually gonna win. They rush over to the Mayflower Hotel where he's gonna give a foreign policy speech. And after they talk to the Russians, Donald Trump gives a foreign policy speech where he says that we are not bound to be adversaries. We should seek common ground based on shared interests with the Russians. And I believe in easing of tensions and improved relations with Russia.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? So a lot of coincidences. And somehow Jeff Sessions seems a little nervous about those connections and wants to continue hiding them. If you didn't do anything wrong, why are you hiding it? I hear conservatives say that all the time.
That's right, that's right. And also, it's amazing the type of actions, pro-Russia actions they take as they're in the middle of this investigation. Like you mentioned, the compounds that they're going to approve, right? Of course, these Russian spies were kicked out of the country because they were spying on Americans or the American government. And now all of a sudden Trump's like, I don't know, let's let them back in, why not? So that's problematic, right? But also keep in mind that they're lawyering up. And that's why I mentioned the whole issue of the private counsel and how the private counsel is likely to conflict with the best interests of the White House counsel. So I think Adam Goldberg, who is a former White House special associate counsel, puts it perfectly. Let me give you his statement. He says the outside counsel's job is to make sure the president doesn't get indicted, and if he does, that he doesn't go to jail. The job is defending him personally. When it comes to the White House counsel, though, things are a little different. The White House counsel's job is to worry about the institution of the presidency. They're going to give advice that is best for that office, not necessarily the man.
So that's why Trump can't just rely on his White House counsel anymore, because that guy's job is to protect the White House. So he needed a lawyer to protect his own ass. And so that's why Trump said, no, I need my own lawyer. Now, I'm also told by the right wing that the cops are always right. And what do the cops always tell you? What do you need a lawyer for if you didn't do it? I don't know, I'm just asking. I mean, those are the positions the right wing has, right? So, but from now on, Sean Spicer will not answer any questions about Russia because it might implicate the president, so you're gonna have to talk to his personal attorney about that.
That's right. There's also, if you think there's a lack of transparency now, it's about to get a lot worse. They are no longer gonna do as many on-camera press conferences, and anything that will be on camera will be shortened as much as possible. So for those of you who care about transparency within the White House, you can kiss whatever transparency we've experienced goodbye, and there hasn't been much anyway.
And they're such knuckleheads. These audio press briefings make them look so guilty. It looks like they're hiding. Like, okay, I don't want to be on camera lying because you'll use it against me later.
Yeah.
So can we just do an audio recording and I'll pretend it wasn't Sean Spicer, it was Melissa McCarthy? Right? It doesn't help. It makes you look so much more guilty. And you're on the record anyway. There's a room full of reporters. You can't run and you can't hide. So doing it this way can only hurt you.
Right.
But they're too stupid to realize that. Okay, I know we're way past time, but let's try to do the CBO story really quickly because I really love it.
I love it too. Okay. The White House office. Let me start that again. Sorry.
Go.
The White House Office of Management Director Mick Mulvaney actually, does not like the CBO. That's the Congressional Budget Office, which analyzes policy ideas and whether or not they're gonna cost too much or whether or not they're gonna be cost effective. And he specifically doesn't think the CBO matters and doesn't think we should pay attention to it because of the analysis they did in regard to Republicans' plan to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. Now, here is Mulvaney's statement to the Washington Examiner in regard to the Congressional Budget Office. He says, at some point, you've got to ask yourself, has the day of the CBO come and gone? How much power do we give to the CBO under the 1974 Budget Act? We're hearing now that the person in charge of the Affordable Care Act methodology is an alum of the Hillary Care program in the 1990s who was brought in by Democrats to score the ACA. Now, the person that he's talking about is Holly Harvey, who has been the head of the CBO's Health Analysis Division since 2009 and had served during the Clinton administration as senior analyst in the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Planning and Evaluation at the DHS. Okay, so.
But let's just note for the record, the Republicans didn't complain about her when she was marking up Obamacare and said things that the Obama administration did not like at all.
That's right.
Back then, they're like, what a wonderful nonpartisan person here.
Okay, so that statement is ridiculous, but I don't think it's the worst. Here's the worst. Did you see the methodology that on that 23 million people getting kicked off of healthcare insurance? You recognize, of course, that they assume that people voluntarily get off Medicaid. That's not defensible. Okay, no. That is not what the methodology stated. You are straight up lying, and he knows it, okay? The methodology did not assume that people on Medicaid would wake up and be like, oh, we repealed the Affordable Care Act. All of a sudden, I don't want Medicaid and I'm gonna get off. No, it's not about them voluntarily getting off Medicaid. They lose their Medicaid coverage because you guys wanna cut Medicaid by the tune or to the tune of $834 billion. That's why people get kicked off of Medicaid. They don't voluntarily do it. So I love his framing there, but it's complete lies. And by the way, sorry, you guys didn't even want to give the CBO an opportunity to do any analysis. You guys rushed a vote, okay? You guys got together with all your cronies and all your goons and you guys voted on it before you could even allow the CBO or any organization for that matter to look at the policy and do a clear analysis of what the ramifications would be. You guys didn't want the truth to come out, but it did and you don't like it, so now you just want to discredit the Congressional Budget Office.
well, if I cut Medicaid by $834 billion, you're going to have to volunteer to get off of it, isn't it? So it is rubbing salt in the wounds. But overall, let me tell you why they're doing this. That's I think the really important part, which is that they're trying to intimidate the nonpartisan governmental organizations, saying, hey, if you don't do as we tell you, we're going to take away your budget. And we're gonna kill the organization completely. So CBO, next time you tell people the truth about how we're gonna take away health insurance from 23 million Americans, remember that it might cost you your job. So watch where you're stepping. And that's why this is how goons act. This is how they do intimidation. Dick Cheney used to do a lot of this back in the days of the Bush administration to manipulate us into the Iraq war. Hey, be careful which direction you go with the intelligence, because you might or might not have a job afterwards. So now they're threatening entire departments like the Congressional Budget Office, which the Republicans have relied on and quoted endlessly when there were Democratic presidents, and the CBO would come out and tell you what was wrong with their proposals. They would tell you what's right and what's wrong with the proposals. Basically, they tell you the consequences of those proposals, and then you can make value judgments about them. But now that they're in charge, no, we don't want anything nonpartisan.
Right, and he also proposed what he believes would be a better strategy in analyzing the consequences of policy proposals. He believes that we should allow partisan organizations to come up with their own analysis, and then members of Congress will come together and they will decide, where the truth lies. Oh yeah, I'm sure that'll work out real great, okay? By the way, I don't want partisan organizations playing a role in the analysis. I don't want liberal organizations, I don't want conservative organizations. I do want nonpartisan organizations, and you're absolutely right. The CBO did rip Obama's proposals quite a bit when he was in office, and the Republicans used that to their advantage when they would argue against those proposals. But now all of a sudden the CBO is partisan against Republicans? Please.
And he says they should use think tanks like the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, that'll work out real great.
And look, part of the problem with the so-called liberal think tanks is that they're also largely funded by millionaires and billionaires. The right-wing ones are, nobody's thinking at a think tank. They hire people who will agree to their preconceived propaganda. The whole point of a think tank, and I need you to understand this, especially the right-wing ones, is not for to spend a lot of money on philosophers and like, which way should we go? And if you come up with an honest opinion that doesn't agree with the funders of the think tank, they'll love it. They'll have no problem with it because they're trying to make sure that you think. No, the think tanks are propaganda outlets. They're propaganda tanks, okay? And so those millionaires and billionaires and corporations fund those think tanks to make sure that they have propaganda they can hand people like Mick Mulvaney, who can then slash your healthcare so that they can get rich. And he's like, let's just use those. Why can't we just substitute facts with propaganda, which is Republican 101. Okay, we're way out of time. We're gonna come back, second hour, or whatever we're calling it. A little bit of hypocrisy on the part of the president. LeBron James is attacked, he fights back. And then my favorite story, a tennis star
it's so good.
Has gone astray. Apparently there's no love in her game anymore. Oh God, that's so bad I can't even take it. Okay, we'll be right back.
Doc, I'm telling you, the talking, this therapy, none of this is working for me.
Grace, I want to try something new with you today.
Really?
Yeah, bear with me. What do you see?
Blood.
Okay.
More blood.
Okay, good. What about this one?
Buckets of blood on the floor.
Okay.
The Zodiac Code. A disembodied head. John Wilkes Booth.
Okay.
John Wayne Gacy. A dead body, your dead body.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, I forgot my email password. What is it?
PASSWORD.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Hassan D. Piker and on Twitter at Hassan the Hun. And this has been The Breakdown. Was that good, guys?
Okay. Not enough hashtag use. Hashtag abs, hashtag model, hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag one black friend.
I'm thinking more rings.
I got him here.
You need more accessories. Way more accessories.
I don't know where to put it.
Come on, throw these on. Woke bay, not sleep bay.
More sexy too.
When's the last time you posted on Instagram? Too long. Come on, man. No, you need to post at least once an hour. What's the outfit of the day today? Is this what you're going with? No. We need more accessories. We need.
This doesn't have anything to do. It doesn't.
For your gay audience, man.
Yeah, the gays love you, man.
Okay. What else? What else do I need to do?
You haven't appropriated a culture in a week.
We have like a kimono or something.
Damn, that looks good on you, dude.
Perfect. How many rings you got on? Do we have any more?
I got 3 more.
Yeah, can we get more rings on this?
And when you're done, kiss the ring. Look at the camera. Kiss the ring. Maybe like a little wink.
Islam's role in terrorism and all the Huffington Post articles weren't doing well. I wasn't.
How many likes did our last outfit of the day picture have?
Only like 100,000.
So I think that's where your focus needs to be. I hear you on all the blah, blah, blah social issue. We need to focus on followers.
Kids in Yemen.
We don't care if you sleep at night.
Dab, mother. Dab.
Okay, I'll dab.
There you go.
More.
Talk about yourself more.
I'm Hassan Piker. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram.
Yeah, be more into it.
Instagram is important for me. Americans losing access to healthcare coverage.
I hear you. Attack Tommy more.
I've done it. So many. She shoots out of her living room now. It's like punching down now.
We're okay with that. It helps the brand.
We made you. We got you verified.
You're nothing
come
without
on.
us.
So I don't know what else I need to do here.
Dude, just take off that shirt.
That's exactly why Tommy Lauren is stupid. I hate you. I'm Hassan Piker. Follow me on Instagram.
Hashtag woke bay.
Hashtag woke bay. Please follow me. Please.
Hey, Cenk, what's up?
Aaron, I forgot my email password. What is it?
PASSWORD.
Back on the Young Turks, members of the day are Hugh Hawes and Crystal Cardona. And you too can become a member by going to tytnetwork.com/join, which makes sense because you join us. Okay, and now in today's postgame, I will explain to you how Donald Trump's dad was one of the original showboaters, literally. Okay, and I will explain what that means. It's really interesting.
Did he have a really nice boat that he liked to show off?
Close,
okay,
but not exactly. It did have to do with self-promotion. And then we'll talk a little bit about cable news' obsession with Russia.
Yeah, I do want to discuss that.
No, we want to discuss it.
It's making me crazy.
Okay, so I don't watch cable news, so I'm okay with it. Okay, anyway, Stabby666 says on YouTube Super Chat, praise Kofefe. Thank you for reminding me. I haven't called anything Fefe yet, but I will. Let's go to some tweet Fefes. Mugatu says, sorry, I'm out of sympathy. Tired of ex-Trump supporters suddenly realizing he doesn't give a shit about their problems. All right, fair enough, Mugatu out of sympathy. Okay, not very lib of you, Makatu, though. Not very lib-fefe of you.
You know, it's funny because with Trump, during the campaign, he was he's a rarity because he was constantly telling the truth about what he was gonna do. And then people voted for him because they're like, nah.
Yeah, well,
right?
I mean,
For like the one time a politician isn't lying to you about how hideous he is, you guys don't believe him. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, because it's a strategic ambiguity. It's actually one of the oldest political tricks in the book. Obama does it in 1,000 times more sophisticated way, but he kind of gives you whatever you want to hear, right? Trump would do it in an unsophisticated way. He'd be like, I'm gonna build a wall. No, I'm not. I'm gonna cut Social Security. No, I'm not. I'm never gonna cut Social Security. And then they're like, see, he said he's not gonna cut Social Security.
Yeah.
It's kind of the old Sam Harris trick. Let's profile Muslims. I mean, Muslims are great.
I don't want to get into that dark hole of drama.
Okay.
But anyway, let's move on. Update on a story where I admit that I was absolutely wrong. Okay.
Wow.
Kathy Griffin made headlines this week after she posted a rather tasteless picture of herself holding a decapitated head that appeared to look like Donald Trump. Now, she got justifiable backlash as a result of that, justified backlash as a result of that, and she ended up apologizing, and people on the left and right were criticizing her. We criticized her. We thought the image was in poor taste, was a really bad idea, and that type of violent imagery has no place in our society. And while we were covering that story, I said, look, it's different when private citizens do it, which I know that private citizens did some pretty horrendous stuff in regard to President Obama. And it's different when a public figure does it. You're held to a higher standard. You have certain responsibilities. And I said, to my knowledge, we didn't have public figures on the right doing any type of violent imagery in regard to Obama. I was wrong. I forgot about someone because I guess I just block him from my memory because he grosses me out. Ted Nugent. Okay. So Ted Nugent, not on one occasion, but on several occasions, made threatening statements in regard to President Obama and also Hillary Clinton. So let me give you some examples. Let's go to graphic 2. In the lead up to the 2012 presidential election, Ted Nugent made comments at an NRA meeting in St. Louis that led to an investigation by the Secret Service. He said, we need to ride into the battlefield and chop their and Obama administration's heads off in November. Okay.
So when he's referring to the Obama administration when he says chop their heads off. Now, okay, Secret Service has to look into that. What I love about that is how analogous it is to Kathy Griffin. And of course, you could argue worse. Now, I went off on Kathy Griffin because I hated that image and I wouldn't want it done to Obama, Hillary Clinton, or Bernie Sanders, anybody, right? It's not the right thing to do. But when someone says no, and let's actually go do it, and Ted Nugent isn't joking. I mean, maybe he's using a metaphor, in which case you'd really, really want to be a little bit clear about that. But as you see the context of his other quotes, you realize it's not a metaphor. He is constantly threatening actual violence against political leaders. And he is celebrated in the right, including by Donald Trump. Again, we'll get to that in a second. But it's one thing for Kathy Griffin as a joke to show Trump's severed head. It's another thing for Nugent to tell a bunch of crazed right-wingers, let's go actually do it and chop their heads off.
In 2012, he was also quoted as saying, if Barack Obama becomes the next president in November, again, I will either be dead or in jail by this time next year.
So, this is Ted Nugent talking tough as usual. I don't know if that implied that, I guess he was implying that Obama was gonna come get him because Ted Nugent is such an important political figure and he needed to imprison him, or that he was gonna do something violent against Obama and hence would be imprisoned. But remember, Ted Nugent loves to talk tough because he's actually a giant coward. Hey, anybody remember how he got out of the Vietnam War? Oh, right, he crapped himself and he stewed in his own feces for a week and then showed up and pretended to be crazy, and they said, okay, you're gonna get a deferment out of Vietnam. This is a story Ted Nugent told, okay? Later, after people said, that makes you look like the worst person on earth. Many years later, he's like, okay, I retracted, I guess. he thought he was clever. He's like, I'm a coward. I don't want to fight when my life's actually in danger, so I will crap myself. That's who Ted Nugent is. So now, since he's so deeply insecure about that, he has spent decades trying to make it up with, oh yeah, I got a machine gun. Oh yeah, I'm gonna kill everybody. I'm gonna chop their heads off. Hey brother, you had a chance. You did. Instead, you crapped yourself.
So,
but anyway, it gets worse.
There's more. He would go on to say other things too, like a joke about assassinating Harry Reid and that Obama and Hillary Clinton should be tried for treason and hung. By the way, it's hanged. That's the proper grammar, but nonetheless. Let's go to graphic 8 because there's more. He was quoted as saying, Obama, he's a piece of shit. I told him to suck on my machine gun.
See, for some reason, that's the one that I think puts me over the top. Because you can say, hey, let's, we're gonna kick their ass, we're gonna kill them, we're gonna light them up. I don't know, we're gonna destroy them, eviscerate them. These are things that could be political metaphors. I'm not gonna get all worked up over that, right? But he keeps constantly talking about actually assassinating people and hanging them, etc. And so when he says, suck on my machine gun, there's no political analogy where you suck on a machine gun. Right, that's not a thing, that's not a saying, it's not in the English language. That means I would like to put a machine gun in your mouth and pull the trigger. Now, do we think Ted Nugent's gonna do it? I hope not, right? So.
Just like we don't think Kathy Griffin is gonna decapitate Donald Trump's head, right? And by the way, for the billionth time, I'm not making excuses for Kathy Griffin. I did not agree with that image. I thought it was a terrible idea, and I'm glad she apologized. But now, looking back and looking back at it on retrospect, it's just, the theme continues. This theme of Republicans do something, Democrats criticize them a little bit, and then we all move on. A liberal does something, and everyone loses it, right? And then that person apologizes, the apology isn't enough, you gotta fire her, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, Anderson Cooper's gotta throw her under the bus, you gotta destroy her life. It's just this weird double standard, and it makes me so incredibly angry. And even though I agree that she should have apologized, this kind of stuff makes me not ever want to apologize, even if there's wrongdoing. Because for what? For what? They never get the same treatment. Here's another statement from Ted Nugent. Hey Hillary, you might want to ride one of these into the sunset, you worthless bitch. He had his gun when he said that, right? And so he is not, like, it wasn't one thing that he said. It wasn't two things that he said. This is a constant theme in his rhetoric. And he gets a little bit of pushback from people on the left. But you think Republicans are speaking out against him? No, in fact, quite the opposite. Donald Trump invited him and other deplorables to the White House after he got elected. And in 2012, when all of this drama with Nugent went down, Trump took it upon himself to tweet, because that's pretty much the only thing he knows how to do, and defend Ted Nugent. Graphic 6, he says, Ted Nugent was obviously using a figure of speech. Unfortunate as it was, it just shows the anger people have toward Barack Obama. Well, did you feel the same way about Kathy Griffin and the anger that she might feel toward you? Not so much. In regard to Kathy Griffin, he said that she should be ashamed of herself. My children, especially my 11-year-old son Barron, are having a hard time with this. Sick.
How about when Ted Nugent said that Obama should suck on his machine gun and should be decapitated? He had children, he had young children just like you do now. Weren't they scarred by it?
Well, they don't matter.
So could you imagine if a Democratic politician came out and said, it was a little tasteless what Kathy Griffin did, but you can understand her anger at Trump, so what are you gonna do? Makes sense. People are so angry at Trump, yeah. And then they invited her over to their office. He invited Ted Nugent, after all of this, after all of it, to the White House. So they have no morality. They claim to be part of the the moral crusaders that said, oh, it's Donald Trump. He grabs people by the genitals and he thinks he can get away with it because he's a celebrity. He ripped people off on Trump University. I mean, you know what he is. So of course he hangs out with a scumbag like Ted Nugent, one of the worst guys in the country. And then they go and take pictures making fun of Hillary Clinton in the White House. I mean, and they talked about Bill Clinton defiling the White House. Here's a guy who crapped himself so that he could get away from Vietnam while other people died in Vietnam. That's who you invited over, Ted Nugent? Because that's what right-wingers are. They're hypocrites. They're giant hypocrites.
Which is why my advice for those on the left is avoid inciting violence, avoid doing something stupid like what Kathy Griffin did. But if you are aggressive and you do speak out and you do fight back against the right wing, don't ever apologize for it, okay? You might use language that's unsavory in an establishment political setting. Who cares? I'm done apologizing. I'm done. You call these people deplorables, don't take that comment back. That's what they are. They're deplorable. If they don't like it, maybe they should change their behavior. If you shit in your pants constantly just to avoid a draft, you're deplorable. You shit your pants and you sat stewing in your own shit for weeks. You're disgusting.
To be fair to Ted Nugent, I think it was only a week. Can you imagine sitting in your own filth for a week because you're that scared? So whatever progressives might say going forward, it can't possibly be as filthy as Ted Nugent's pants.
Anyway, all right. LeBron James was the victim of racist vandalism. His home in Los Angeles, which by the way is considered a very liberal part of America, was vandalized with spray paint. There was a racial slur spray painted on the gate of his home, the N-word to be specific. And so what's amazing about this whole story is not that it happened, which, for people like us who cover stories like this on a regular basis, it seems kind of unsurprising. But the way that LeBron handled it when he was asked about it during a press conference, I think his statement was really powerful and I wanted to share it with you guys. Take a listen.
But it just goes to show that that racism will always be a part of the world, a part of America. And hate, in America, especially for African American, is living every day. And even though that, that it's concealed most of the time, even though people hide their faces and will say things about you, and when they see you, they smile in your face. It's alive every single day. And I think back to Emmett Till's mom, actually. It's kind of one of the first things I thought of. And the reason that she had an open casket is because she wanted to show the world what her son went through as far as a hate crime and, being black in America. So it's like it doesn't, no matter how much money you have, no matter how famous you are, no matter how many people admire you, being black in America is tough.
And most people don't have that fame, don't have that wealth, and being black in America then is even tougher. So unrelated story, but it gives you a sense of how tough it is. Recently, JP Morgan had to pay a huge fine because they were using third parties that would do mortgages and charge a little over, on average, over $1,000 more for black families getting the same house, meaning the same price of a house. So why? They're black, so I'm gonna charge them more money because their rationale, I imagine, is I don't trust them. They're less trustworthy, but they have the same credit. It's the same price for the house. No, I'm gonna charge them more. Now, so when people say things like white privilege, people get pissed because they're thinking I'm a poor white guy in the middle of Kentucky. I ain't got no privilege. But what you don't know is when you go to get a mortgage, you're not getting charged an extra $1,000, okay? But they are. That is one of dozens of examples I can give you. In LeBron's case, he is rich, he is famous. He's got 1,000 things we don't have. So he has other privileges. But when it comes to his identity, well, those privileges don't help him. At the end of the day, they think it doesn't matter how rich and famous you are, you're still the N-word.
Right, so I wanna comment a little bit more on that or elaborate on that a little more. Because what you hear time and time again from people who are overtly racist is, well, they're lazy. They like to stereotype the black community. They're lazy, they get involved in crime, black on black crime, and they bring up all this BS, right? And they say if only if they worked as hard or if they were as successful, if they were this or if they were that. But in reality, it doesn't matter. LeBron James is obviously hugely successful, right? He couldn't be more successful in the field of work that he does, right? He's one of the best basketball players in the NBA. He's wealthy, he has everything, laid out for him. And it seems like he would be the last person who would be attacked by a racist person or their house vandalized by a racist person. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how successful he is. It doesn't matter that he's not involved in crime or government programs or any of that. It doesn't matter. The only thing that mattered to that individual who spray painted that racial slur on his gate was the color of LeBron James's skin. And there's nothing LeBron James can change about his behavior to make that other individual look at him differently. And that's the part that's crazy. And he mentioned how people will be a little, they'll hide their racism, they'll smile at your face, and behind the scenes they're really hating you or what. But no, that was like 5 years ago. Things are different now. People are now overtly racist. They're proud of it. They parade it. They talk about it on social media. And that's the kind of rhetoric that was encouraged by the current administration that we have in office right now.
A really good example of it was just a couple of days ago. Chuck Woolery, game show host, came out and did this incredibly random tweet where he called Bernie Sanders basically a communist Jew. He says, "Is that a coincidence? I'm just pointing it out." It's like a weird old anti-Semitic stereotype about how Jews are actually communists and control the world or something, right? In the old days, Chuck Woolery would have thought that. He wouldn't have tweeted it publicly, though.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So, and maybe some people would have, not maybe, a lot of people would have thought about LeBron James no matter how successful he was. And by the way, it's not just that he's talented and skilled. There's a lot of talented basketball players who don't work hard. And LeBron works his ass off, and everybody knows that, and he's famous for it, right? But it doesn't matter if you work hard. They're gonna call you lazy anyway. They're gonna call you the N-word anyway.
That's right.
And so now those guys have been empowered to go out there and do the spray painting and do all the different things that's happening. And I can't leave one of these stories when we talk about stereotypes without pointing out the irony. So the racist stereotypes are blacks are lazy. Remind me again who took slaves so they wouldn't have to do farm work? So they could just sit in their home and have other people do their work for them? Which was lazy again? I'm pretty sure the slave owners who first took Native Americans as slaves and then African Americans as slaves, etc., were pretty freaking lazy when they didn't want to do their own work, okay? And then, they do crime. How about the crime when you enslave someone and beat them and murder them and rape them? How about all those crimes? Don't bring up the past, don't bring up the past. No, I'll stop bringing up the past the minute you stop with your racist stereotypes, okay?
Also, in recent days, the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. experienced a few racist acts by unidentified individuals. There was a noose placed on the floor of an exhibition involving segregation. It was the second time this week a noose was found on the grounds of a Smithsonian institution. Also, a noose was found hanging from a tree outside of the Hirshhorn Museum, another Smithsonian institution that showcases contemporary art. So that's what's happening in the country right now.
So the last two things about it, because what the right-wing racists will now say is, you guys are making it racial. Dude, I didn't put the noose up in the African American Museum. We didn't write N-word on LeBron James' house. One of your racist friends did. So, now you're gonna make a big story about it. Yes, when the guy's going to the NBA Finals and he's what we thought was a beloved figure in America and is by a lot of people, and somebody writes a giant N-word on his house, that's a story. We didn't create it. Your racist friends did, okay?
But here's what the reality is, right? They'll say that as a way of silencing you or intimidating you so you don't cover stories like this and you don't talk about stories like this. You're not fooling anyone, okay?
Yeah.
You're not gonna shut us up. You can call us whatever you want. I've been called every name under the sun and I don't care, right? So if you think I'm race baiting because I'm simply covering a story that I had no part in, have at it.
So writing the N-word is not race baiting, but pointing out that somebody wrote the N-word is race baiting.
Yeah.
No, so if you're trying to shut us up, how's that working out for you? Only the largest online news show in the world. But anyway, keep going.
Right. All right, we gotta take another break. We'll be right back.
I just closed my Wells Fargo account.
I just divested funds from Wells Fargo.
I definitely urge you to do the same.
Please come divest. Divest today from all the big banks. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, Chase. There are so many others. Do it. We can make a difference. Water is life.
They'd rather lose to Republicans than have a progressive win with them. That's how dumb the corporate Democrats are.
It's the Democrats who lull you to sleep, and at the end of the day, they're the ones who push the right-wing agenda.
Most of the people are either unemployed, underemployed, or fucked.
This is why you lost to Trump, you fucking moron. What the fuck is wrong with you? Whoever wrote that, I'm sure they were typing with one hand and going like this with you. The Democrats are dead. The way you feel right now, that's how a chump feels. Do not freak out.
Back on the Young Turks, I wanted to report the results of a poll we did recently. Is Cory Booker progressive, we asked.
Gee, I wonder how this poll is gonna.
Well, in Washington, it would be nearly 100% saying Cory Booker is progressive.
Washington does not watch us. Or if they do, it's not because they like us.
So our audience, is not a nail biter here. 95% no, 5% yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then one tweet for you guys. Narcoleptic Bay says, Mallory says, I love that Cenk Uygur without fail mentions how Ted Nugent pooped on himself because he was a coward. Classic crapper, LOL. But you know what you reminded me of, Mallory, is that they gave Obama so much grief for having Common at the White House. Because they're like, oh, Common's a rapper, he's a gangster rapper. No,
they called him a gangster rapper.
He's not a gangster rapper.
Oh, that was so funny.
But then it made me realize that Ted Nugent is a gangster crapper. Oh, I gotta work that into a tweet. Anyway, all right, let's move forward.
All right. I don't even know what she is. What is she, like a tennis legend, this lady?
I guess I never heard of her because she's so old, but yes, she's.
Okay.
No, I'm just, I went out of my lifetime, but.
All right. A former tennis champion recently opened up in regard to her beliefs regarding tennis players and how there are just too many lesbians among them, and that they indoctrinate too many kids to also be lesbians. Yeah. This is an insane story. The tennis player's name is Margaret Court. She broke records back in the day. She was a big deal back in the day, but now she is a 74-year-old pastor living in Australia. And here she is speaking to 2020 Vision Christian Radio, which sounds like a lot of fun.
Tennis is full of lesbians, because even when I was playing, there was only a couple there, but those couple that led that took young ones into parties and things, and things they just, because they like to be around heroes, and you know, what you get at the top is often what you'll get right through that sport. The mind is a battlefield, and that's why I wrote that book, Train Your Brain. Because the mind isn't, it's all in the Bible. God's got so much in there about the mind, how it affects us, affects our emotions, our feelings. And you can think, oh, I'm a boy, and it'll affect your emotions and feelings and everything else. And so that's all the devil. Well, say there's a devil, but that's what Hitler did, and that's what communism did, got the mind of the children. And it's a whole plot in our nation and in the nations of the world to get the minds of the children.
Okay.
What?
So let's break down a couple of things. First of all, there's an excellent chance that Margaret Court is lesbian.
Yeah, totally. She's like, oh, it's the work of the devil.
Yeah, so
lesbianism.
In another quote, she said, "We know that homosexuality is a lust of the flesh. So is adultery, fornication, all those things. They too know this. This is why they want marriage, because it's self-satisfying." I'll get to the marriage part in a second, but wait. If you're not gay, why would homosexuality be a lust of the flesh? It would be a lust. It's not really a lust. It's something that other people do that you're not that interested in. God bless their hearts, but you're not interested in it.
By the way, if guess what? We all have fallen victim or prey to lust of the flesh. That's a great part of life. Let us rejoice.
Let us rejoice. Right? Amen. Can I get an amen? So anyway, so apparently she finds lesbianism very lusty. Interesting. And then, but the thing that really put me over the top was her comments there about how the mind is a battlefield.
Right. Because
if you're not gay, there's no battle going on in your mind. You're interested, like if you're a guy, you're interested in girls, and that's what you're interested in, and where's the battle, right? I must have missed the battle, I missed the memo on that. But if you're bisexual or gay, there's a constant battle going on in your mind. I want to, but I shouldn't. It's the lust of the flesh, I shouldn't. Oh, the Bible says I shouldn't. They told me not to eat shrimp too, but I eat shrimp all the time. Anyway, okay, so her mind is a battlefield. It's almost all these folks say the same thing. Michael Savage, in that semi-autobiographical book, he's a right-wing lunatic on the radio, talks about how gays are terrible. But when he wrote about it himself, basically in a fictional book, he talked about how he would get up in the middle of the night and he'd want to have sex with guys so bad, and he constantly had this battle inside his head.
Or Pastor Manning, who we interviewed, you can check out that interview on youtube.com/TYT interviews, where he talks about how men like to consume semen because semen tastes so good.
He's like, well, obviously, if you let people be gay, they would because semen is delicious. Okay, well, all right, that's fairly clear as to where you stand. So, and he thought Starbucks was putting semen into the coffees because, well, then obviously people will drink it more. So you get a sense of the battlefield that's in there in these people's heads, but in fact, it's these people who are putting propaganda out into the world. And she's also said that transgender children were the work of the devil. So there she is bullying and attacking children and doing it because she actually has feelings of her own that she's never come to terms with.
Right.
Why? She was brainwashed. She was brainwashed when she was young that this is all evil and that it's lust of the flesh and you shouldn't give into it. And she's been grappling with it for 74 years.
Now, of course, everything that was just said is not verified. It is speculation. You can't take it with a grain of salt. However, if it is true that she lusts after women but has been suppressing it her entire life, I feel terrible for her, right? Like, just don't buy into that propaganda. It doesn't make you a bad person, right? I think it stems from ignorance. This weird idea that people make a lifestyle decision to be transgender or to be gay, as if being gay or transgender has been a lot of fun in society. They've dealt with so much persecution, so much discrimination, right? And so it's not a choice, and it's something that people need to be educated about, and unfortunately, I don't think that she is. Now, the bullying thing is important because apparently there is a stadium named after her in Australia. A tennis match is supposed to happen there, and now tennis players are saying, we don't want to play there, we feel uncomfortable, we want her name wiped off. And she's like, they're bullying me. Okay, glass house, throwing stones, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, or throwing rackets in this case. You're the one who was bullying kids in the first place. That's the reality. All right, bye-bye.